Hi everyone, welcome to learning how to use the laser cutter. And we're going to be using the laser cutter to cut some things out on paper in our first 2 days. The laser cutter can cut material such as paper, cardboard, thin wood, thin metals. It can also do etching and engraving on the paper or metals or woods or glass, plastic, plexiglass, acrylic. There's lots of things that we can be working with. We're going to look at a few things to know first, and a couple of things with laser cutting. And the laser cutter, just so you know, is available in the makerspace room, which is the same place where the 3D printers are located. The the laser cutter wants to use a scalable vector graphic file, or an SVG file. And the program we're going to use for that is called Inkscape. And Inkscape creates scalable vector graphics. The thing with the vector graphic is pictures are made through lines. And if you think back to some math, you know that lines technically go on forever. And because they go on forever, you can stretch or zoom into an object without losing any quality or any of the clarity or resolution of the picture. In Mr. Brink's rotation, in that class, he looked at a program called Paint.net. And Paint.net is a graphic editing program. And if we zoom in on a regular graphic that you take with your phone or you take with a camera, you're going to see that it's made out of pixels. And a pixel is an individual square that's able to hold one color. The more you zoom into a picture, the more squares you'll see and the less detail you'll see. This is why we need higher megapixel cameras and phones to take better pictures. But you can start to see these individual squares now. With Inkscape, because it's made out of lines, you can zoom in and all you'll see is the image with no loss of quality. So as we go back, we're going to see that our designs also need to be vector graphics so that the laser cutter can understand what it is, because lasers like to cut out lines. And our object, if we want to cut it, needs to be an outline, not a solid shape. The way the laser cutter is set up, all objects that are outlined in red are cut. So those are cut lines. Next week, we'll look at how to do etching and how to do engraving, and those are black objects or black lines. So we're going to go into Inkscape. Inkscape is a program installed on your computer. We can click down here and we can type in Inkscape, and we can just click on Inkscape 0.91. It takes about 30 to 40 seconds to open up. I've already got it open here on my computer, and we can get to work. There's going to be a couple of times in this video where I'm going to say, let's pause the video, take a look at your neighbor, make sure that they're okay. It's just a way for us to make sure that we stay together, because there are a few new steps, and especially when we learn a new program, it's sometimes a little bit challenging. So first of all, here's our document in Inkscape. We have our toolbox down the left-hand side, and we often have side panels pop up. I can close this side panel. I don't need that one right now. I want to change the size of our document. I'm going to go to the File menu, Document Properties. I'm going to move this down to the center. Here, in Custom Size, I want to change the units to inches. And I want to change it from 8.5 by 11 to just 8 by 3. Once I type in my 3, I need to hit Enter. Can you just pause this for a second? Maybe check your neighbors and see if they're okay, and see if they have those things entered in. And if they have those, let them know that they're good to go, and then we're going to close this X. Now that we have our document sized, I'm going to use the magnifying glass here in my toolbox. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. Probably one too many. I can zoom out using this tool up here. We're going to put text on here, and we're going to make a little name tag, kind of like we did in Tinkercad for the 3D printer. We're going to use the laser cutter. So here's my object, or here's the size of my object. I want to go down here, and I want to grab my Create and Edit Text Objects. I can click on my properties, on my document properties. I can click in here, and here I can see that I have a font size, I have a font face. I'm going to type in my name, And that size is okay for now. Perhaps I want to change fonts though. I'd like us to find a font that's a little bit thicker of a font rather than a thin font. So I'm just going to try to find one here. Let's take a minute or two, try to find a font that you like. We'd like to try a bit of a thicker font and not so much a thin font. If you want a real thick one, there's one up here called Cooper. And Cooper Black is a very thick font, very kind of a heavy font. And I'm going to change my font size. Why don't you take a few minutes, pause this video, and we'll get back in about 2 minutes. So now that we have our font selected and we have our text object, and you've checked your neighbor to make sure that they're okay, we can see that my object isn't quite centered and it's way over to this side. In my toolbox, the first tool, which is my selection tool, I click on it, now I click on my object, then I can move that to the middle. The next steps that we have to do are a little tricky and they have to be in the order that we do them. So there's going to be a few times we're just going to pause the video, ask you to check your neighbor and see if they're okay. So earlier we said we want to make outlines and that we need these to be red. To make this an outline and get rid of the solid black, we go down here to where it says fill. We double click on that and that's going to open this side panel for me. I have to make sure that I have my object selected. So if I click off of it, nothing shows up. I click back on it and I get more of these items. There's a fill tab, stroke paint, and stroke style. Let's go to the stroke style one to begin. I want to change the units again to inches and I want to make the width 0.01. I hit enter and for some reason in Inkscape we have to type it in twice for it to stick. So 0.01 or 1/100th of an inch, a very, very thin line. Check your neighbor, see if they have that. Maybe we need to pause the video for a minute so that we can catch up. We're going to move over to stroke paint, and in stroke paint we have currently no paint selected. We want it to be a flat color, so we're going to move over to flat color, and we're going to increase the red value. Look at your shape as we do this, or your text. Notice that we suddenly have this red outline. We want to turn the red all the way up, so it has to be up to 255. Check your neighbor, see if they're okay. Maybe we'll pause the video for a few seconds. Now that we have our outline, let's go to the fill menu, or the fill tab, and we don't want any fill. So we're going to click on the X for no paint. As soon as I do that, the solid black comes out, and yours may have been a different color, and that's okay, as long as we have our red outline now. So we may have had a different color there. Now we have this red outline, and it is ready, if we were ready, to actually send it to the laser cutter. But we want to do a few more things and learn a little bit more about Inkscape. Sorry for that menu popping up. We have our text, we have your name. I'd like you to go to the Path menu and go to Object to Path. You're not going to see anything change, but it's going to allow us to do more precise and more changes to individual letters. So that was Path, Object to Path. The second tool in our toolbox is Edit Paths by Nodes. If we click on that one and then click on a letter, we suddenly have all these little boxes around it. And we're able to move these boxes and make changes to individual letters. So perhaps I wanted to do that with my Y. And perhaps I want to move my B so it has some pointy little things coming out of it. Like that. We're going to take a few minutes. You're going to allow you to either rewind the video and see how we did those steps. We're also going to take a few minutes just to give you a chance to change some of your fonts, change some of your letters to get a bit of a funky design, and then we will get back. So we're really close to being ready to send our design to the laser cutter. There's two more steps we have to do. We want to save it, but we also want to be able to cut this whole tag out of a bigger sheet of paper. Because right now it would cut the letters out and we would have almost like a stencil. and it will cut the inner circles out first. So this part here of my B, that part of my B, that part of the E, and that part of the E would be cut out first. The other thing we want to do in our toolbox here on the side, let's grab the square, or the create rectangles and squares. We want to make sure that we stay inside of our document, and then we draw a box around it. So it's going to also cut that box out because it's going to be a bigger sheet of paper, and we're going to have multiple jobs on the laser cutter at the same time. So now that we have this, we are ready to save it. We're going to go to the File menu. We are going to save as. We are going to go to the N drive, the 3D printing files, the Mega Block, the laser cutter, Mr. V, name tags, and we can put our name in there as the file name, and we will save it. Now that we have it saved, we are ready to move over to the makerspace room. And that's just the room beside us where the 3D printers are and the laser cutter is. Mr. Hordak should be around to help us set up some of these jobs and also help a few of you learn how to actually send it from Inkscape to the laser cutter and to a program called Job Control. Once you're finished and you have this finished and you've got your tag cut out, I know a few of us still needed some time to work on our portfolios and catch that up and to finish all that. Anyways, if I don't see you, guys, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving weekend, and I'll see you on Tuesday. On Tuesday, we'll be doing some more with this. We'll be looking at how to engrave, how to do some more cutting, and how to do more with complex shapes. And this is all necessary for our upcoming project, which you guys are going to find out more about on Wednesday. Guys, have a great weekend.